So today's topic is about the resultant of the vectors. How to find the resultant of the vectors which are perpendicular. If two or more vectors are there and they are perpendicular to each other, there are two ways to get the resultant. One is known as the calculation method that we discussed in the last session, but I will revise that again today. And the second method is known as the graphical method. And the graphical method is divided into two categories. You can use in a graphical method. Graphical method or also refers to a scale diagram. And in a graphical method or a scale diagram, we can solve by using a triangle method, or we can solve by a parallelogram. So I'll explain each of them. First, when we want to find the resultant of the two vectors by calculation method, this we discussed in the last session. We will use a Pythagoras theorem example. We have two vectors. One is, say, 4 Newton is there, and the other vector is 3 Newtons. So one of the vector example is 3 Newton, another one is 4 Newton, and we want to find the resultant by using the calculation method. So how it can be done? The calculation method. So always the hypotenuse will be the resultant of the two vectors which are perpendicular or 90 degree to each other. So we'll use a Pythagoras theorem. So in this case, we'll square 3. So 3 square plus 4 square in a root. That will give us the resultant. If they ask the magnitude of the resultant, which is the length of the hypotenuse, which is base square plus perpendicular square in a root, also you can say a Pythagoras theorem. And if you want to find the angle or also refers to a direction. So theta equals tan inverse the perpendicular divided by base. So how you'll identify which one is a perpendicular, it depends on which angle you are finding. For example, if I'm finding this angle, theta. So one side of a theta is hypotenuse, the other side will be base, and the opposite to the angle will be perpendicular. But what if if we need the angle with horizontal, we will use, in this case, it will be perpendicular divided by base. So perpendicular is 4 and the base is 3, so it will be 4 divided by 3. But what if we have to find the angle with the vertical, like if we want to find this angle, then the perpendicular and the base will change because the angle is always between the base and hypotenuse. So this will be the base with reference to the angle, and opposite to the angle will be perpendicular. And if you want to find the angle, so theta equals tan inverse perpendicular over base, so it will be 3 by tan inverse 3 by 4. So it totally depends on the question. Sometimes they ask calculate the angle with horizontal. Sometimes they ask calculate angle with vertical. Is it clear, the calculation method? So this is refers to a calculation method. But how to do a graphical method? Like, because in exam, they usually give you a choice that solve either by a graphical method or a calculation method. So I'll explain both methods, and what you find it easy, you will use that method. If the choice is not there, then you have to solve according to the given method. But usually there are choices, like they provide, you can solve this question either by calculation or graphical method or a scale diagram. Now, example, we want to find the resultant of the two vectors which are perpendicular to each other. So we can use a triangle method, we can use a parallelogram method, which is known as a graphical method. On the next slide, I will explain how it can be done. So graphical method or a scale diagram. For this, you need a ruler or the scale to draw the vectors, and a protractor is needed to measure the angle. Example, we have two vectors. One is the same question is there. Example, we have two vectors. One of the vector is example 3 Newton and the other vector is 4 Newtons. And they asked to get the resultant of these two vectors. First step, what will be our first step, even if it's a triangle method or a parallelogram method? So first step is always select a suitable scale. So always select a suitable scale. What does it mean, select a suitable scale? Because Newton, you don't have a ruler or you don't have a scale in newtons, you have a scale in centimeter or millimeter. So you have to select a scale which is suitable. So example, if I select 1 centimeter equals to 1 Newton. So if I select 1 centimeter is 1 Newton. Then if I have, so 1 centimeter is 1 Newton. If I have 3 Newton, how many centimeters will be there? So 1 centimeter equivalent to 1 Newton. So 3 Newton will be, so that will be equal to 3 centimeters and 4 Newtons will be 4 centimeters. So first step, we always select a suitable scale. Even it's a parallelogram method or a triangle method, we first step is always select a suitable scale. Now, what is the second step? If you're using a triangle method, then what you should do, you will draw the first vector, then the end of the first vector, we will draw the second vector. And the resultant is the tail of the first to the head of the second. What does it mean? First, we'll draw, because we already selected that we have two vectors. One is 3 Newton, another one is 4 Newton. So 3 Newton is 3 centimeter and 4 Newton is 4 centimeter. So first we'll draw a first vector. Any one you can take as a first vector. Example, we select 3 centimeter as a first vector. Any one you can select, it won't make difference to the final answer. So first we draw 3 centimeter. That is the first step. After selecting a suitable scale, draw the first vector. Then so two vectors are there and a question is you have to find the resultant of the two vectors by a triangle method. First step is select a suitable scale, because Newton, you don't have a ruler or the scale in Newton. So it is always, you have to convert into centimeter. So we select a scale, 1 Newton is equals to 1 centimeter. So 3 Newtons equivalent to 3 centimeter and 4 Newtons equivalent to 4 centimeter. So first what we did, we draw first vector. Like that, any one of them you can draw. You can draw 3 Newton or you can draw 4 Newton. 3 Newton is 3 centimeter. So we draw 3 centimeter. Then the second step, draw the second vector from the end of the first. So what we'll do, we'll draw the second vector from the end of the first. That is the second vector, which is the length equals to 4 centimeter. Now, what is the resultant? The resultant is the tail of the first to the head of the last. Like this is the tail of the first and this is the head of the last. When you join tail of the first to the head of the last, what we call this, we call that as a resultant. And you will just measure. We will just measure the length of this vector. Like example, say this length is coming out 5 centimeter. So if the length is 5 centimeter, we know the scale. If 1 centimeter is 1 Newton, so 5 centimeter will be how many Newtons? It will be equals to 5 Newtons. Is it clear, the triangle method? We can also solve the vector by like a graphical or a scale diagram. We can use a parallelogram method. In a parallelogram method, what we do, we draw both vectors from same point. That's a difference only. And we will complete a parallelogram. And then the diagonal will be represent the resultant. What does it mean? First, we will mark any point where we want to start the both vector. Like example, I mark this point A. So we draw both vector from after scale, because first step is always we have to select a scale. Scale, even it's a parallelogram or a triangle method, scale is always there. You have to select. So then we draw both vectors from the same point. So like horizontal vector is 3 centimeters. So I will draw 3 centimeter from point A. So we'll draw 3 centimeter from point A, and we will draw force, because the 4 centimeter is upward. That's why I should draw it upward. So 3 centimeter is towards the right. So I draw 3 centimeter vector. And then I will draw 4 cent from the same point. I will draw 4 centimeter vector. After drawing the two vectors from the same point, what we do, we complete a parallelogram. In this case, because it's a perpendicular, vectors are there, so it will form a rectangle. Rectangle is also a parallelogram, as it's having two opposite side parallel. So this will be 4 centimeter, this will be 3 centimeter. After completing a parallelogram, what we have to do, we just have to draw the diagonal of this parallelogram. And the diagonal of this parallelogram, what it represent? It represent the resultant. We just measure the length of this diagonal. Example, this diagonal is 5 centimeter. So if this diagonal is 5 centimeter, and we have the scale 1 centimeter is 1 Newton, so 5 centimeter will be equals to 5 Newton. So resultant is equals to 5 Newtons. That's how a parallelogram works. So small difference is there. In a triangle method, we draw first vector, then from the first vector, we draw the second vector, and we join the tail of the first to the head of the last. That gives the result. But in a parallelogram method, what we do, we draw both vectors from the same point and complete the parallelogram. The diagonal of this parallelogram, what it represents, the resultant. About the angles or the direction, if they ask angle or a direction. So sometimes they mention measure the angle with horizontal in a triangle method. So this is the angle with horizontal. This will be the angle with the vertical. You have to use your protractor, just place in the intersection of these two lines and measure the angle. Same thing, sometimes they may mention measure the angle with horizontal. So this will be the angle with horizontal, and this will be the angle with vertical. So it depends on the question. Sometimes they ask to measure the angle with horizontal, sometime with vertical, or sometimes they mention direction with a 3 Newton force or direction with a 4 Newton force. So that also means we have to measure the angle with these forces. Now the example related to this. For example, the air current is due east with the speed of 20 meter per second, and object is moving due south with the speed of 15 meter per second. And the question is find the resultant speed and the angle with south. So this is a question. So this is a question, and the air current is due east. So first you should know east, west, and north, south, all the directions. So we have north here, south, east, and west. Now we have to find the resultant here of the two vectors. The air current is due east, means the air current is due east means one of the vector in the direction of the east, and that is 20. That is the air current. And we can use a triangle method, we can use a parallelogram method, or we can use a calculation method. But as our main focus is the scale diagram, so scale diagram can be solved by using a triangle method or a parallelogram. So I will solve both of them. Like, so one is 20 Newton and another one, it's moving south. So south is down. So the second vector, what is the direction of the second vector? The second vector is south, and that is 15 meter per second. So this is the second vector, which is 15 meter per second. And we want to find the resultant. First thing, to solve this question by a graphical method, we have to select a scale. What do you think is a suitable scale? 1 centimeter is how many meter per second? Because we don't have a scale or a ruler of meter per second. So 1 centimeter is 5 meter per second. Yeah, that can be good. So if 1 centimeter is 5 meter per second, then 15 meter per second will be equals to 3 centimeter, and 20 meter per second will be equals to 4 centimeter. Here I cannot select 1 centimeter is 1 meter per second. Why I cannot select this? Because otherwise I have to draw 15 and 20 centimeter lines. That will not be a suitable scale, because on the exam paper you cannot draw 15 centimeter or 20 centimeter. That's why you cannot select 1 centimeter is 1 meter per second. So first thing what we did, we select a suitable scale. So we select a scale. 1 centimeter is 5 meter per second. So 15 meter per second is 3 centimeter, and 20 meter per second is equals to 4. So if I solve, I will solve by each of them. Like I will solve with a calculation method and with a scale diagram. First, if we do a calculation method, so to do this as a calculation method, first we have to just draw complete a triangle. Like this is 20, this one is 20, and the other one is 15. So even in a calculation method, we complete a triangle. So 20 meter per second and 15 meter per second. So what will the resultant? So this will be the resultant, means the hypotenuse will be there. So how to get the resultant of these two factors? So 15 square plus 20 square in a root. What's the answer for this? 15 square and 20 square in a root. That's 25. Okay. So the resultant is equals to 25, and the unit will be meter per second. The next is the direction. Like this is a magnitude of the resultant. This is the magnitude of the resultant. The second part is a direction of the resultant. And look what they ask. They ask find the resultant speed and the angle with the south. So which one is the south? This is the south. So we need which angle? Because the angle is always with resultant. So we need this angle. Angle with the south, because this is representing a south direction. This one is represent, if the same question was there and we have to find angle with east or direction with east, then this angle we need. But this is direction with south, so we need this angle. So with reference to this angle, what we have, so which side, this will be hypotenuse. So the one which is with an angle, other side that will be base, and the opposite to the angle will be perpendicular. And if you need, the formula is tan inverse perpendicular divided by base. So it will be equals to tan inverse. The perpendicular is how much? The perpendicular is 20 and the base is how much? 15. So tan inverse 15, 20 divided by 15. Tan inverse, so 53.1. So the angle is 53.1 degrees. The hypotenuse, this one is a hypotenuse. This one is representing the hypotenuse. This one is the angle, the other side of hypotenuse, base, and opposite to the angle will be perpendicular. So tan inverse perpendicular divided by base, we will get the angle. Is it clear? So as you can see, the east is always towards the right, west is not, west is towards left, north is up, and south is down. Because the question is find the angle of a resultant to with south. So south is exactly, it's a vertical, so that's why we are finding this angle. So in a compass, the east is towards right, west is left, north is up, and south is down. This is the calculation method. But what if we want to solve this by a scale diagram? So as we select the scale, we will solve the same question, but now the scale diagram, and in a scale diagram, we select a scale, proper scale is there as we already did in the beginning, that 1 centimeter is 5 meter per second. So 3 centimeters equals to 3 meter per, 15 meter per second is 3 centimeter. And so here you can use a triangle. It's up to you. Any method can work. You can use a triangle method, or you can also use a parallelogram method. So I prefer to use the triangle method. It's easy to just draw the two vectors. So first what we draw any one of the vector first. It's up to you, any one you can draw first. Example, I draw first 15 meter per second, so which will be 3 centimeter. So first I will draw 3 centimeter, which is south. Then I draw another vector, which is 20 meter per second or 4 centimeter, which is east. So this is 4 centimeter. And what about the resultant? It's always from tail of the first to the head of the last. That will be the resultant. But this time, it's not by calculation, it's by measurement. So you have to use your scale or a ruler. You just have to place your ruler or the scale and measure the length. So what about the length of this one? Say, when you measure, it's not like exactly you will get 5. It might be a bit different, because measurements might be different. Parallax error is there, or you may draw thick lines. So example, it is coming out 4.5 for you. So you will write accordingly. Example, it should be around 5. Say it is coming 4.5 for you. So first you draw 3 centimeter, then you draw 4 centimeter, and then you measure the length. Like draw the tail of the first to the head of the last, that's a resultant. And you have the scale that 1 centimeter is equals to 5 meter per second. So if you have a resultant of 4.5 centimeter, how many meter per second will be there? So you just cross multiply. So 4.5 into 5, that is equals to 22.5. And it's a meter per second. So final answer, you will get resultant. The magnitude is 22.5 meter per second. That's a resultant. But how to get the angle? As they ask, you have to measure angle with south. So which one is a south direction? This is a south because this one is a south direction. This one is east. So which you have to make, the question is angle of a resultant with south. So we need this angle. So how to measure this angle? Because this is why calculation, like not calculation, a measurement. So you have to place your protector in this manner. Place a protector in this manner and measure this angle. So this angle is coming out, when you place a protector and measure this angle, say this is coming out 54. So what you will mention the angle or the direction is 54 from south. Is it clear how we get the direction and the magnitude by a scale diagram?
Yes, sir.
So you can solve, as I mentioned in the beginning, you can solve a question related to the vectors which are perpendicular by a triangle method. If you are using in a graphical triangle method, if it's a triangle method, you'll draw first vector, you will draw the second vector. Yeah, the vector always should be 90 degree because now it's always perpendicular vector they will ask. As the course outline, you will have only perpendicular vectors. So when you join the horizontal with vertical, that will give the resultant in a triangle. But in a parallelogram method, how it can be done? You will draw the two vectors from the same point. We'll draw the two vectors from the same point and we complete. And the diagonal of this represent, when we join, the diagonal of this represent the resultant. So the previous question which we solved, previous example, so if it was using a parallelogram method, so what we will do, if it was a parallelogram method, we'll draw the two vectors in the from the same points. So we'll draw, like east vector was 20, so that was 4 centimeter, and the south vector was 15 meter per second or 3 centimeter. So we draw 4 centimeter, we'll draw 3 centimeter, we complete a rectangle which is a parallelogram here. It will always form a rectangle in a perpendicular vectors and draw the diagonal. That will be the resultant. Measure the length of a diagonal, that is the resultant. And because they asked angle with south, so this was 15 meter per second is in south. So we need this angle. So you have to place a protector and measure the angle and write the answer.